So the topics I'm going to cover will be an overview of Forest Service land management planning, a little bit about our public engagement efforts, and then talk about what is actually in the plan with an emphasis on the Bozeman area and Hyalite Canyon. So first, let me start with some orientation to the Custer Gallatin National Forest. And the Custer National Forest combined with the Gallatin National Forest in 2014. So now we have a forest that stretches from the Montana-Idaho border near West Yellowstone on into eastern Montana and the northwest corner of South Dakota. So please keep this map in mind when we talk about our public meetings. The forest is a little over 3 million acres, and with such a wide geographic span, it's a very diverse forest. It has the highest peaks in Montana in the Beartooth Mountains, and out in South Dakota, there are deposits with dinosaur fossils. The only palladium and platinum mine in the United States is located on this forest in the Stillwater area. And out in eastern Montana, there are very large grazing programs in the Sioux and Ashland Ranger districts. And also, this is an area, especially in the greater Yellowstone area, where the native wildlife still roam. Grizzly bears, wolves, bison, we've got it all here. So what is a forest plan? And I really thank Mark's introduction. It creates a vision for the forest, a comprehensive vision that integrates all of the resources. And it sets overall management direction for years to come. And I want to say it's not the kind of plan that says we're going to do this trail over here or that project over there, but it sets the rules for all of the projects that are going to come. So it may say we plan to do so many habitat improvement projects over a decade, but it won't say where and when and which ones. But all of the projects that the Forest Service is going to do now have to be compliant with this plan. So if we do a trail project or a weed project or a timber project, that project needs to be designed to comply with this plan. And that's why it's such an important plan. So why are we revising it? Well, it's the law. The National Forest Management Act of 1976 requires a forest plan for every forest, and it also requires that it be periodically revised. And while the law might say every 10 to 15 years, the current plans were actually created in the mid 80s, 1986, 1987. So it's a big lift, quite expensive and time consuming for a forest to revise its plan. And so they don't often get done every 10 to 15 years. So we do have two plans now for one forest, and those plans, the Custer plan and the Gallatin plan, are quite different. So it's time to combine the two plans into an integrated plan for the forest. And in 30 years, a lot has changed. Increased population on the west side of the forest, but there's places on the east side of the forest that population has actually declined. We're seeing bigger fires, new invasives, especially aquatic invasive species. We've had land exchanges, so the actual land base is changing. And we certainly see new technology, new uses, and new interests for the forest. So it's definitely time to revise this plan. So it's a 5-year process so far. We launched in 2016, and any planning process will start with an inventory. Basically, what have you got out there? And we wrote an assessment of existing conditions. So it's a report and maps. And then we had a proposal. We came out with a proposal and asked for public comment. In 2019, we developed a draft plan with alternatives and the draft environmental impact statement. Again, take public comments. And then last July, we're calling it the 2020 plan because it's not quite the final plan, a final EIS and a draft decision. So we're in the last phase. We're working through the objections we received, and we hope to be out with the final plan, an EIS, and the final decision late summer, early fall. So public engagement, as I mentioned, a number of times we had public engagement. Well, we've had easily over 100 in-person meetings and webinars. And again, think of the geographic span of the forest. We've had meetings in West Yellowstone and Big Sky and Bozeman and Gardner and Cook City and Livingston and Big Timber and Columbus and on east on into Ashland, Montana, Camp Kirk, South Dakota. So it was a lot of road trips. We saw a lot of Montana. We take public comment at each plan phase. Um, we've had the tribal consultation, and we're working with like 18 or 19 different tribes that range from Oregon and Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and North and South Dakota. A lot of interest from tribes. A lot of agency involvement, other federal, state, local agencies, and youth engagement as well. So the plan, a wide range of topics that we need to cover in the plan and provide an integrated plan for ecological sustainability while also contributing to social and economic sustainability. It's all about sustainability. The Forest Service revised its planning regulations in 2012 with a big emphasis on sustainability and integration. So all the topics you can see on the word cloud there, plan direction for water, for riparian areas, for wildlife, for fish, for cultural resources, minerals, timber, grazing, air quality, soils, on and on. So there is plan direction for all of these resources. And in addition, plans also develop land allocations. You might say similar to zoning if you think about it that way. And so they may set additional plan direction for those specific areas on top of all of the resource protection. So in the plan that we released last July in 2020, the plan had 7 recommended wilderness areas, 13 backcountry areas, and a backcountry area it's a protection category, but does allow more uses than recommended wilderness. 10 recreation emphasis areas, I think that's a well-named title, pretty self-explanatory. We have the Stillwater Complex for those important minerals, 2 key linkage areas for wildlife connectivity, and then 30 rivers and streams were identified as eligible for wild and scenic rivers. So let's go to the maps. I like maps. And I'm going to go east to west. On the east side of the forest, you don't see a lot of land allocations. You see some backcountry areas in gold and some existing national natural landmarks, but there aren't a lot of land allocations there. So if there's no color on the map, that means you follow all that forest-wide direction and maybe something specific for Ashland and Sioux. So there is plan direction. But the fact that there are fewer land allocations, it's reflective of the uses there as well as of the publics and the public interest there. Now we'll go to the west side of the forest and the maps get a little more complicated. So I don't know if you can see my mouse at all, but here we are in Bozeman. And these maps show both the existing allocations like designated wilderness and the land allocations of the plan with just kind of an overview with green for recommended wilderness, gold for backcountry areas, pink for recreation emphasis areas. There's a blue hatch north of the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness for the Stillwater Complex, and then a heavy brown outline for key linkage areas on the west side of the Bridgers and the north side of the Gallatins. So let's zoom in a little bit on the Bozeman area, starting with the Bridger Mountains. Again, our plan in 2020, on the west side of the Bridger Mountains, the heavy brown line is a key linkage area. And the idea with those is to limit uses and really for wildlife dispersal. The greater Yellowstone ecosystem, the idea is to allow for dispersal from this ecosystem on, particularly up to the Northern Continental Divide. So some uses are limited in there for that purpose. At the northern end of the Bridgers is a backcountry area around Blacktail Peak. Again, and then around Bridger Bowl, not surprisingly, a recreation emphasis area around Bridger. At the south end of the Bridger Mountains is a blue circle, Lyman Springs recharge area, and this is important for Bozeman's water supply. Okay, now let's look at the northern end of the Gallatin Mountains. And again, here we have Bozeman right at the top of the map. So let me try. Okay, pink are recreation emphasis areas. There's one along the Gallatin River, around Storm Castle, and the Hyalite recreation emphasis area. The blue, heavy blue outline, the Bozeman Creek watershed, Hyalite Creek watershed. Again, these are very important watersheds for Bozeman's city water supply. The gold is the West Pine Backcountry area, and then to the south we have the a recommended wilderness area, and the heavy purple outline is the wilderness study area. And then the heavy brown line is the key linkage area. So you can see that Hyalite is in context with the surrounding lands, and you can see the emphasis in Hyalite relative to the emphasis on the areas around it. And let's just zoom in a little more about Hyalite, again, from our plan in 2020. And here the base map is like a regular visitor map, so it's a little easier maybe to orient yourselves. So the pink, again, is the Hyalite recreation emphasis area, and it's delineated for the entire watershed, even though the south half or the south portion of that watershed's in the wilderness study area. Just because it's a recreation emphasis area doesn't mean every acre is developed for recreation. But a recreation emphasis area are those places on the forest that already see a high level of recreation and provide opportunities for a wide variety of recreation, a wide range of skills, accessible at different seasons. So it's an area where we see a lot of recreation now, and we can expect to continue to see recreation. In Hyalite, it will be, the challenge will be sustainable recreation with increasing demand. And we can foresee that demand will continue to increase. And so it's about sustainable recreation for the recreation visitor, as well as sustainability ecologically as well. So in Hyalite Recreation Area, the riparian management zones apply just like anywhere on the forest, the guidance to protect wildlife, etc., at the same time with a recreation emphasis. So in some of the land allocations, current or future uses may be limited, but not typically in a recreation emphasis area. The current uses continue. There's an emphasis on partnerships, certainly is important. We have one of the partners here tonight speaking this evening. It's a municipal watershed, as I've said, for Bozeman. So as an important partner, and it's an important use for the city of Bozeman. Some of the areas we'd want to emphasize in the future is more day use along the reservoir. That's pretty prime real estate. So increasing day use, loop trail opportunities, exploring if there's any opportunities for alternative transportation. And one of the few limitations in a recreation emphasis area in this one would be no new trails to the high peaks at the south end of the watershed. And then let's look at Hyalite in context of the surrounding areas. Most of those surrounding areas are going to have more limitations than the recreation emphasis area. So to the south in the green is recommended wilderness. To the east is a backcountry area. Also to the east is a key linkage area. So where new development is limited, timber harvest can still occur, but there has to be periods after activity has to be periods of rest. Again, kind of more quiet for animals to disperse. So it's an interesting to look at emphasizing Hyalite at the same time, adjacent to Hyalite, things will be more limited. New uses in particular may be more limited. So that's just kind of a brief overview of the plan, where we've been, where we're going, and with a little emphasis on Hyalite.